industries.
So, Europe's leaders realise that they need an energy strategy that works for the future of their economies. But is that even possible with all the infighting amongst the EU's 27 member states? Well, I've been speaking to a woman who, until 2019, was the Director of Energy Policy at the European Commission. In other words, one of the most senior officials on energy policy. Megan Richards, a real pleasure having you on the show, and we really appreciate your time. And Megan, let's start with this. Can you just explain what role politicians have in making sure there's enough energy when its commercial companies are entering into contracts?
Well, they set the groundwork, of course. They have to make sure that the markets are operating correctly and well. Each country in the European Union, according to the EU treaties, establishes its own energy mix. And B, the EU as a whole has an important energy union policy, and of course the first and most important element of that was diversification of supply, security of supply, making sure that Europe as a major importer of energy has enough to go around to make sure households are working properly, industry can function at a reasonable price, and that transportation and all the other necessary elements into which energy feeds are available to the citizens of Europe.
Well, let me ask you this, because we know Europe has scrambled to sign more than 50 energy deals just this year. So I'm wondering, Megan, just how much progress is being made on finding the long-term solutions to replace Russian energy?
Yeah, I think a lot of work has been done, both at the level of the European Commission, which is making huge efforts to discuss with energy partners around the world, with individual member states, of course, who are also going out to discuss with various energy suppliers. But all the contracts normally would be signed between commercial partners. And of course, commercial entities listen to what governments are saying, they listen to what's going on politically, but at the end of the day, it's a commercial decision that they have to make.
What are the risks for Europe or elsewhere of signing up to these long-term energy deals? I'm wondering, how significant a risk is there of repeating the reliance on Russia with reliance on somewhere else that may run into problems?
Well, I think in the case of Russia is perhaps a bit special. It's a neighboring country. Pipe gas, of course, is easy to transport. It can come in very large quantities. It was cheap, whereas LNG is really much more of a, let's call it a global commodity. So the likelihood also of getting stuck with LNG from only one country, A, would be quite low, because in the past there was a relative, not dependence, let's say Qatar had a larger share of the LNG market in Europe than it does now. And of course the US has taken over a huge portion of a rising LNG market, which of course had to rise in order to compensate for some of the Russian gas reduction. But there are other countries that are capable of selling LNG.
Well, let me end on this. Megan, is there likely to be a scenario where Europe ever has energy independence?
Oh my goodness. I think, well, it would have to be very, very long term. I can't, quite frankly, I don't see Europe ever having full energy independence for the time being, given the current energy sources that we use. Perhaps if fusion becomes the energy of the future, that will be the case. And renewables, of course, will increase dramatically. I think Europe will not be completely domestically independent for a very, very long time, if ever.
Well, on that point, Megan Richards, a real pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for your time, and I'll talk to you soon.